NetsBoy, so let's hear what he has to say. His name is NetsBoy, he thinks the world is all over when the Nets just can't play. What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bringing your latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. So, it finally happened. The Nets got a new general manager. Former assistant general manager of the San Antonio Spurs, Sean Marks. He was somebody that nobody really even heard about. I know his name was listed as one of the candidates that people were talking that the Nets were looking at, but I don't know. He was not the front runner. Ryan Colangelo and Arturish Kanishevich, those guys were kind of the people who they thought the Nets were going for, and then out of nowhere comes Sean Marks. I think this is a good hire, to be honest. Anytime you're getting any type of organizational guy from the Spurs, you have to think it's a good move. The Spurs are hands down one of the most successful franchises in the NBA. They're great at getting European players, which I know Prokhorov really wanted to get. He wanted to have a player, get a GM who has good ties to the European leagues and get the right type of players. They're really good at creating a winning culture and a winning attitude and a winning program. They have a saying in San Antonio: does this player have the Spurs personality or the Spurs tenacity? There's a specific type of person that the Spurs organization look for. And so I think that's something that the Nets need, because they've had such a fluctuation of personalities and talent and people that having an idea like that could be really good for this team. So I think it's a really good hire. He said in the interview process that, right now he's got to evaluate what the Nets have, which is smart. He didn't make any moves. He only, I think, officially was on the job for about 5 hours before the trade deadline. Nets made no moves via the trade deadline, which I figured was going to be the case. I know there was so many rumors out there about Thaddeus Young and Brook Lopez and Bogdanovich. I knew that nobody was going anywhere, simply because the Nets didn't have a GM. If you don't have a GM, are you really going to make any moves? So when Sean Marks took over, 5 hours left, he's just like, let's just see what this team had, what I got here, and we'll make plans next season or next offseason, or the offseason coming up. So nothing happened with the Nets. Really a very quiet trade deadline. There's nothing major. That doesn't shock me also one bit, because with the salary cap expected to get as high as it's going to be next season, free agency is going to be where it's at, and no one's going to be trying to get trades, now, unless they really think they've got a shot this season. And let's be honest, it's really like a 3 to 5 team race right now. So that being said, the Nets are still bad. We're ending into the second half of the season. They had a good win against the Knicks. They just lost a pretty ugly-looking game against the Hornets, though they did battle back in that game. Look, the Nets are 15-41. They need to win out to finish 500, which obviously is not going to happen. They're not going to go 26-0. So they're going to be under 500 again. But when you look at this team, there are some promising traits. I know Chris McCullough is officially back. He looks like he's got potential. He needs to figure out how to play in the NBA. He's a little lost at times, but you can see the skill set. He is the definition of raw talent. He's got the skill and the potential. He has a good outside shot. He's a better three-shooter than I thought he'd be. I actually got to see him when I went to the Nets-Grizzlies game last week, or a week and a half ago, before the All-Star break. And he has a lot of potential to be a really good player. I don't know if he'll be a star player in the league, but he's got the skill set to be a really good, solid NBA player, just like Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. Both those guys have really solid potential. Not star potential, but solid potential. And Markel Brown has played really well of late as well. So you look at the Nets, they've got some good pieces in these three guys, Brown, McCullough, and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. So to me, the key moving forward is develop those guys while still trying to win as many games as possible. Now, the Nets, with their 15-41 record, actually just jumped the Suns and now went from the third worst team in the NBA to the fourth worst team in the NBA. the way I look at the standings, the Nets could get as high as the fifth worst team, which to me should be the goal, or one of the other goals moving forward, other than developing the younger players and creating good team chemistry. They want to try to win. And I think a good motivation is to do everything you possibly can from giving the Celtics the best pick that they can get. Obviously, no matter what, it's going to be a lottery pick, and the Celtics have a chance to get the first overall pick or a top 3 pick. But if you can avoid that, if you're the Nets, I mean, you don't want to help a conference rival, right? You don't want to help someone in your conference. So the best way you can prevent that is to start winning games. Now, like I said, looking at the standings, there's really only one other team I can see the Nets possibly passing record-wise, and that's the Timberwolves, who are 17-39. They're 2 games behind them. After that, the Nuggets and the Pelicans and the Bucks, and I don't think they can catch those teams. They are technically only 5 games behind those teams, but actually more like 6 or 7 games. I don't think that's, with 26 games left, I don't think the Nets will be able to do that. So if the main goal I feel the Nets should have is that 5th worst record. They want to get past the Timberwolves. So they want to end up better than the Timberwolves, Suns, Lakers, and 76ers. If the Nets can do that, I'd say, okay, this was a disaster year, but at least you ended as best as you possibly could based off of how terrible you were back in early January when you basically fired, your general manager and coach. So that being said, I do like the few little promising players the Nets have. I think Sean Marks is going to do a good job building this team up and building something. It's going to be a process. Only in video games can it not be. I know in my NBA 2K16 that I'm doing, I managed to turn this exact Nets team that the Nets have now over the offseason by making trades and signing free agents. I managed to turn the team into a 65-win team next season. And I didn't actually play a lot of the games. I simulated a lot of games that year. And the Nets won 65 games and are going to the semifinals in that year. That's video games. But let me just say something. That gives you hope, right? It gives you optimism. I know it's video games, but video games are supposed to be based off of as much of real-life comparison as possible. So if I could create a team that's gone 15-41 right now, and just over the offseason making certain trades and signing certain players, be able to create a 65-win team next year, who knows? But realistically, I strongly doubt that would be the case. Though I don't think I did anything that outrageous. I signed Mike Conley. I signed Eric Gordon. I signed Mike Conley. I signed Kent Bazemore. I kept Lopez. I kept Young. I traded, let Joe Johnson go. I brought in Sean Livingston. And brought back Mirza Teletovic. And then halfway through the season, I managed to trade for Rudy Gay, which was a little bit of a stretch. But that's completely aside the point, getting off topic. Those are just some of the things that I managed to do over the offseason in my basketball game, obviously the 2016 offseason. Point is, Sean Marks in. I think he'll do a good job. I like what he has to say. I think he's got a decent vision of this team. And let's see what he does. And let's hope the Nets can win some more games and jump the Timberwolves and end up with the 5th worst record. So we'll see. So until then, that's all I really have to say, and we'll see what happens moving forward. Once again, I'm not going to really talk about the next few games for the Nets and so on and so forth. Obviously, they just need to win games. They did waive Andrea Bargnani. I almost forgot to mention that. They did obviously waive Andrea Bargnani. That was the first move Sean Marks did, which is great. Look, Bargnani just didn't belong anymore. He really didn't. He was struggling. He was inconsistent. I think the Nets were like a minus 93 points while he's playing, so he had to go as well. The guy is just bad at defense, let's be honest. He's an okay offensive player. Offensively, he's an okay role player, but defensively, he's too much of a liability. He can't rebound. I don't know what's going to happen to him, but completely aside the point. Like I said, moving forward, Nets go on this ridiculous road trip. Portland, Phoenix, Utah, Clippers. Just got to win some games, Nets. So, yeah. So until then, keep your eyes open for the next NetsBoy episode, and let me know what you guys think about Sean Marks. Let's get some comments going. I get very few comments. I get some likes and I get views, but I get very few comments. Let me know what you think of Sean Marks. If you think he's a good hire, I think he's a great hire. And what do you think he needs to do to maybe make this team less crappy? So until next NetsBoy, this is NetsBoy, signing off.